this week is the one when most Tory MPs, more than ever actually, have realised that nobody is coming over the hill to save this party. They've known for a long time that they're in quite a bad spot. I don't think many of them have been under any other impression, but I do believe that there have been a sort of a core of Tories who think, yeah, but something will turn around. You know, the economy will change, the budget will make an impact, the immigration plan will work, strategy will be developed so that, you know, we can take this fight to Labour. And I think this is the week where, you know, a lot of them have realised that there just isn't anything else coming.
Isn't Boris Johnson coming?
Well, I think actually for me that's one of the moments, because what that story says to me, it's not about talking to the country, it's about talking to the party. And when you feel you need to say to your party, look, I know you're frustrated with how things are, but here's Boris Johnson to fix it. If that's the answer, I'm not. It's not really in a good spot. And I think, you know, you can always debate whether or not people have stopped listening to the Tory party. I personally think that has happened in a lot of people's cases. I know there are strategists inside Number 10 who believe if the economy turns around, if people feel like they are better off, they will give the Tories another chance. I've always been pretty sceptical about that. But I think what you're seeing this week, and particularly the example of yesterday, Kemi Badenoch is a minister in the government. She felt so strongly about this that she came out publicly to say these comments by Frank Hester were racist. I assume she had waited long enough before. She was probably waiting for Number 10 to say this. They didn't. She said it herself, and the Prime Minister came out a couple of hours later and echoed her language completely. That's not the usual way this works. It's not how it ought to work. And it shouldn't really be very difficult when you see those remarks to be able to call them what they are. And I think the fact that this is the second time, the first was Lee Anderson at the government, is struggling with this is a really big problem.
What is going on then in Number 10? Who's advising Rishi Sunak? Because I mean, you can also say that, you know, he's getting on quietly with the job, and that's the stuff we don't see. And there is a little bit of stability now, but then, you know, it's a low bar to what came before. But what is happening where Rishi Sunak appears to be making decisions that come back sooner or later to kind of bite him? Suella Braverman, Lee Anderson, for example, the racism thing. It always feels like there is almost a script now, which is everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. No, it's not. So I don't know how damaging that actually is in the long term.
I think you have to separate these two things out. They've been in power for such a long time that there are a huge number of issues that have just built up behind whoever it was. So Rishi Sunak is sort of standing there trying to hold them all back, and they're all piling on top of him. They would have piled on top of whoever was there at this point, because you've been in government for so long. You know, the prisons are collapsing. We don't have enough prison places because we haven't built enough prisons, because we haven't had enough money in the prison system. You know, you can trace all these things back to other decisions that other people have made.
But don't your comms need to be better?
But that's the second point. That's the political decision making. And I think that's where the problem is here. That, yes, the party should have recognised that Lee Anderson was a problem. It was a moment that needed to be fixed, and not enough was done to bring him back into the party. Now, him going to reform doesn't necessarily mean that a whole load of other MPs will, but it shakes the foundations. It makes people question in the party, well, what are we doing this for? What's the point? And yesterday, you know, I had a lot of Tory MPs messaging me, and they were not the usual suspects, saying, why are we not just saying it's racist? Why? Because we're going to have to do that. We are going to have to say it. So just say it now. Don't waste an entire day of going back and forth over something and drag the story out. And, you know, I think those are the big questions. There is, though, that argument that having been in government this long, you would always come up against these problems, and that is the natural cycle of politics.
It's very interesting, Kate. Thank you very much for that. It's Kate McCann, Times Radio's political editor. You're getting in touch about that, of course, as well. 0333 003 2353. That's the WhatsApp number. Or you can send us a text, 87222. Start your message with the word Times. Is Rishi Sunak any good at politics?
And is it really plausible? It can't be plausible. I know Tim Montgomery knows a lot of Tory MPs, and he found a Conservative home. We're in March. There is an election probably in November. Do we really believe that someone else will be Prime Minister? And as Kate was saying, if someone else is Prime Minister, they've got all the same problems as Rishi Sunak. Because if they're from the right, they'll have to appease the centre. And if they're from the centre, they'll have to appease the right. So would changing Prime Minister at this point, even if it were possible, make any difference to you? Or is this, as Kate says, you've got 14 years to try and defend, That's very difficult for anybody. It's not Rishi Sunak's fault. It's just the nature of time. Let us know anyway. 0333 003 2353. We're discussing this question of does language matter in politics with Giles Corrigan and Flick Everett in just over half an hour. Up next, Lily Allen says having children ruined her career. Is she right? We'll speak with one of the co-creators of Motherland, big favourite of Times Radio Breakfast. This is Times Radio Breakfast with Asma Mir and Stig Abel in association with Nationwide, a good way to bank.
How to win an election with me, Matt Chorley, and our political masterminds, Peter Mandelson, Polly Mackenzie and Daniel Finkelstein.
The main problem with that election, as we all know, is that she called it and then sort of barely turned up for it.
This theory doesn't fit the data.
The best thing about moving to a proportional system is we wouldn't have to have this conversation.
Well, we would, because...
Listen and follow How to Win an Election wherever you get your podcasts.
I am going to resign.
At Asda, we've got Easter sorted. Come for the chalky eggs and stay for our extra special 4 extra fruity hot cross buns. Only £1.40. Tastier than M&S's 4 luxury hot cross buns.
Ooh, plump and toasty with lashings of butter.
Asda, that's more like it. Selected stores subject to availability. For details and verification, visit asda.com/tastematch. May exclude Asda Express and small stores. See asda.com/small stores.
The McCrispy Deluxe is back until the 16th of April. Get both your hands round your tasty favourite with smoky bacon, hot and spicy mayo and a caramelised onion relish. Chicken that hits different. Available until the 16th of April. Served after 11 a.m, subject to availability.
Asma Mir and Stig Abel on Times Radio Breakfast with Nationwide. Whenever you need to, you can always contact a real person on the Nationwide banking app.
It is 8:21. Pete's got in touch to say neither Sunak nor Starmer appear any good at politics. This may be the biggest single reason I would consider voting for either of them.